the destruction around the oil field.
Yeah.
If this peace talk is not going to work, the bombing will start. The poor people live in the bushes again. Last year I saw a baby of 9 months old with one leg. And I asked the mother, what's this? She started crying. She told me the same bomb killed her husband and her 2 sons. And this boy was only 2 months. And she asked me, what will happen if this boy will be a man? And he will ask, what happened to my leg? I'm sure with one leg, he will make sure he killed thousands of Arabs. These people are so bitter. It's not like when you talk on the table, politics, you go for tea break, you take tea and cakes and grow stomachs. It's that way. When we do our workshops on the ground, a tea break is when you are going out to cry.
I think the NSCC has called itself several times that we are voice of the voiceless. It's speaking for the people who could speak for themselves but have no opportunity to do it. And this is what NSCC is doing. And to do that is not just a question of speaking and talking and so forth. It has to be put in a form of good writing. It has to be articulated very carefully and so that the people who read them will understand what do we mean. Ross, he has a gift of writing, being able to articulate things. He has a gift of being able to listen. He has a gift of being able to translate what he has heard into writing and communicate it effectively.
You can leave with me, and I'll just take care of it. Yeah, I'll pass it all over.
Thanks.
Thanks, man. Okay. What we're doing anyway is that we're coming tomorrow, and on the East African Airways. I spent a lot of time here in Nairobi crafting the message of the New Sudan Council of Churches as a missionary. But the understanding of that message and the articulation of that message certainly hinges upon an understanding of the reality in Southern Sudan, an understanding of the devastation that's taken place in this society. No, we can't make a charter ourselves, but maybe we can hop on somebody else's charter flight.
The situation is not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. It's going to be rough. It's going to be unbearable situation. You'll need people who can endure and be able to put up with those kind of situations.
Well, I started playing sax, I guess I was 11 years old. A couple years later, I started getting into jazz, and that's really when I fell in love with the saxophone. Ever since then, I've just pretty much been lost with it. Just love playing jazz. It's the main thing I do to kind of take a break from life and express myself and to be able to express things that words can't really seem to say. The flight into Loki usually is about an hour and a half. We prefer to fly. If you ride with the caravan, it usually takes 3 to 4 days. This is Lokichogyo, Kenya. Basically, it is a logistics camp, logistics town for goods and persons going into and out of Sudan. Basically, anyone going into Southern Sudan from East Africa needs to pass through this small little town of Lokichogyo. The United Nations, most of the NGOs and most churches have their base in this town. It's extraordinarily hot, 12 months a year, about well over 90 degrees, and very dry, semi-arid. Quite unpleasant, actually. Lokichogyo was the first place I worked in Africa after I arrived, and spent about 2 months working here for the New Sudan Council of Churches in our base camp, helping to transport goods and people into Sudan and work like that. If you travel anywhere outside the town of Lokichogyo itself, you are at fairly high risk of of banditry from the local peoples. We're on our way to the Kakama refugee camp. It's about 100 kilometers south of the town of Lokichokio, a camp which has somewhere around 80,000 refugees, maybe about half of which are Sudanese, fleeing from their native Sudan. Their hometowns have been run through by either government forces or SPLA forces, and many of them have had to flee for their lives, and they've ended up here in the deserts of northern Kenya.
Being in the exile is really too painful to the people, because whenever you leave your homeland or country, it is really too difficult for you, and you are not free to do whatever you can decide, and you are like somebody in the prison. So in the exile, we really face so many problems and so many difficulties, even though we are still take care by the UN, it's still also the life is too painful.
Here is the house of Mark Nickel. Mark was a missionary with the Episcopal Church, served with the Dinka people for many, many years.
In fact, Mark Nickel was a white man in black skin. Mark managed to teach us in our dialect and also in English. And he also eat the same kind of food we eat. If we eat maize, he can also eat maize together with us. So now, his death is a great wound in our heart. It is a great wound in our heart.
You know, there are people in Naivasha, they are talking peace and talking peace and talking peace. The New Sudan Council of Churches has a voice in the situation. We are telling them that we want a just peace and that we want a lasting peace. We do not want a quick peace. And we are hoping that soon enough everyone will be able to go home.
So
Home to a peaceful Sudan.
Right now we're flying over southern Sudan, descending through about 12,000 feet. Below us is a country that has been racked by war for the last 20 years. Over 2 million people have been killed. The big hope is that the peace process will last and that people can begin to get their lives back together.
Traveling in this area of Africa is extraordinarily challenging. There probably isn't a paved road in the whole of southern Sudan. You're lucky to find a dirt airstrip in a handful of towns, and then if you can get your hands on a flight, you can get inside. But they're very expensive. Usually you have to either charter a plane or pay way too much money for a ticket. We were able to arrange a 5-seater. I think God said, let's just let's help out a couple missionaries. Because we pretty much came in here flying by the seat of our pants, and things have worked out.
I used to fly jets in the U.S. Air Force, and when I became a Christian, I realized that only what I did for Christ was going to matter. So I separated, went to get my mechanic's license, learn how to fly propeller airplanes, went to seminary to learn the Bible, because I wanted my life to make a difference.
Of course, I like to do something good for the work of God and God's mission. Of course, the other young wanderlust person, part of me is just kind of enjoys flying around a 5-seater, you know, trying to have some fun here and there in the world before I get too old, right? The town of Rumbek has known war for decades and is in the center of southern Sudan. Here, I would witness firsthand the churches working together as they synthesize explicitly Christian values and practices with the traditional values and practices of the peoples of southern Sudan in order to build a just and lasting peace.
The people themselves, not just only the Southern Sudanese in the land, but even those who visit the area, they soon come to realization that the church is the only functioning organ in the Southern Sudan and the only body that is always with the people and has remained with the people since the church is a people.
Enough is enough. Meaning this war has to end. War is not an option. We go for peace and we don't look back. Peace is our goal and we will achieve it by any means.
Traditionally, a bull can be slaughtered. That is a sacrifice. That will cement blood relationship. That will address itself to God, that we have abandoned the war, we have abandoned our quarrel. We are now a brother again. So a bull is slaughtered. And this bull expresses that it is an offering to the dead. And the blood that pours out of the bull slaughtered is an oath that if you fight again, then this blood will not leave you.
The church has adopted many of these signs and symbols, singing and dancing, which become spontaneous for our people to express that we are uplifting, even sublimating the concept of their reconciliation, making God the center, the giver of mercy, the giver of forgiveness, the one who really is the author of reconciliation.
We're sitting here at a bull auction in Rumbek, Sudan. We are about to purchase 2 white bulls, which will serve as a ceremonial peace sacrifice. Cattle are absolutely essential to the lives of the Dinka people, as well as the Nuer people, as well as many of the peoples in Sudan. They are a sign of wealth, they are a sign of prestige. This is also why the sacrifice of a cattle is central to people-to-people peacemaking. Because in sacrificing what is basically the most important element to a culture of society, we are saying that this is a symbol that we are willing to live in peace with one another, because we are giving up our most prized possession. When someone is born, they're often given a cattle name, such as Makur, which means a black and a white cow. My own name, given to me by a chief in Thiat, Sudan, is Mabur Thin, which means the young white bull. We're sitting here in a back room off to the side of the auction. We've just made our financial transaction to buy our bulls for tomorrow. The Apostle Paul says one needs to be all things to all people when carrying out the ministry of the gospel of Christ. And so if buying bulls means being all things to all people, then it can be the responsibility of the mission.
So what will be happening today will be indicators of our intention to forgive one another. We have a priest from Tonj, we have priests from Warab, we have priests and sisters from Malwal Khan who are all here to beg God for the gift of peace. God has decided to give us peace. He wants peace to find its home here among us in Rumbek, here among us in Sudan. God wants us to make Sudan a home for peace.
Bring us back, oh God, our Savior, and stop being displeased with us. Will you be angry with us forever? Will your anger never cease? Make us strong again. And we, your people, will praise you. Show us your constant love. Oh Lord.
I am the hope of my people. I am the leader of tomorrow. Tomorrow is my time. I will put it back.
In the church, we say that when one part of the body suffers, the whole body suffers. And so the church in Sudan and the church in the world, we join hearts and hands for peace in this beautiful land of Sudan. We should know that the church is not a building, the church is not a tree, but the church rather is a body with many parts, all around the world. And so we've not only been speaking peace inside Sudan, we've also been speaking peace to churches around the world. Churches around the world have been promoting the peace of Sudan. Churches around the world have been advocating for the end of this long war. And in many senses, we have the churches to thank for much of what is happening in the peace talks.
It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the beginning and the end. This is the word of the Lord.
Now the borders, particularly between the Denka in Bahr Ghazal and the Nuer in Western Upper Nile, people can move. Trade is moving smoothly. The connections had been made or redone between the kins across the tribal borders, and even the grazing lands are now shared. The fishing grounds are also shared by the two tribes, and basically there is peace, stability between these two major tribes in southern Sudan. This is attributed to the New Sudan Council of Churches.
I often ask myself, do I really fit into this missionary role? And then the longer I've been at this, the more I see that missionaries work at many levels. There are a lot of missionaries who are right on the ground with the poorest of the poor. But there are others of us who work at a more strategic level, preparing the words and the messages of advocacy for the Sudanese. And to me, I just see it as a different level of work, and God has called each of us to use our own gifts in the ways that can best advance the cause of humanity. And if that means a lot of paperwork and a couple of field trips, then to me that's great, because that's that's advancing the work of God's kingdom, and I'm right where I should be.
Nigerian